coming. If you guys want to turn on your cameras, that would be really nice because then we won't just be looking at our own faces.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming by to learn about scribing. We have a PowerPoint we're going to share and kind of go through. And then at the end, there's going to be an opportunity for questions.
All right, I'll start sharing.
Okay, I can start us off. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for just joining us on a Friday. I know not the most convenient time, but we really appreciate you guys just coming here and learning more about scribing. So this presentation, it's part of the Prepare Committee of PHA, where we basically host different lecture series on topics, and today we'll be talking about scribing. Okay, and just to run through introductions about the three of us. So we're all peer mentors as part of the pre-health advising office at Emory. And my name is Sejal. I'm a current junior in the college. I am a chemistry major and sociology minor on the pre-med track. And I've had scribing experience throughout 2021, specifically more like the earlier part of 2021.
Hi, everyone. My name is Balwan. I'm a third-year student and an Oxford continuee. I'm a neuroscience major and a quantitative sciences minor. And I started scribing earlier this semester, so quite new for me.
Hello, my name is Srijita, and I am also a peer mentor. I'm an NDB major and an econ minor. And I was a scribe through Scribe America the summer and like the year after my first year, which I believe was 2019. But it's a long time ago, so maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the year of 2019. So yeah.
Awesome. So just to run through the structure of this presentation, we've kind of broken it up into 4 different parts. So we'll each take on like different parts of this and walk you through some of the things about scribing. So the first part is just to talk about what exactly scribing is. The second is how exactly to obtain some of these scribing opportunities, either in Atlanta or potentially your hometown. We'll kind of talk about both of those things. And then finally, we'll talk about our specific experiences, you know, because we actually were able to scribe and we want to like share some of our stories with you guys if that helps. And then finally, just any questions you have, you know, that's your time to just open the floor up and just ask us anything. So.
All right, so what is scribing? An in-depth overview about this clinical process. So for being a scribe, it helps to document patients' medical information for the provider, which includes medications, allergies, family histories, and it serves as one of the first points of contact for the patient before the medical examination begins. It is an excellent opportunity to gain firsthand experience on how to interact with patients while also observing how the provider coordinates the visit. It keeps the provider and medical facility organized by filling out the chart with detail and precision. And sometimes scribes also perform non-traditional duties like pharmacies and checking in on phone logs. So, as per the Emory PHA website, a medical scribe is someone who specializes in charting provider-patient encounters in real time, such as during medical examinations. A medical scribe's primary duties are to follow a healthcare professional through his or her workday and chart patient encounters in real time using a medical office's electronic health record and existing templates. Some of the companies who hire and train scribes in the Atlanta area include ProScribe, Scribe America, and SuperScribe LLC. I feel like a really brief overview of what a scribe does is I like to tell the story of how whenever you go to your primary care physician and you're talking to them, they're typically like typing on the computer, like typing exactly what you're saying. And that's essentially what a scribe is. They're the ones who are typing on the computer, making sure they get everything down and noting everything so that the provider can actually be talking to you face to face instead of on their computer. And that it also allows them to see more patients eventually because they're not doing their own charts. They're just like editing it at the end. So in reality, scribes are really important important because they can help providers move patients along quicker and to make sure that they see more patients and hopefully get the care that they need. So there's a little bit of different scribing software, EMR and EHR, which stands for electronic health record and electronic medical record. So scribes have to be familiar with these systems and have a comprehensive record of the patient's medical history throughout their life. And right here is just a screenshot of an example of an EHR from eClinicalWorks.
Okay, perfect. So that's like, oh, sorry, got someone. Okay, yeah. So that's basically like a brief overview about what a scribe does and just like some of the things that you would have to work with, like some of the softwares as well. Okay, and as we move on to the next part, we just want to talk about how to actually obtain some of these scribing opportunities. So, you know, how you can actually become a scribe and gain like clinical experience. So like Balwant talked about, especially on the Emory PHA website, so one of the companies that they advertise is Scribe America. So if you go through a major scribing company like that, they would often ask you to complete something like the Scribe 101 course, which is basically like a basic overview about some skills you would need as a scribe. So they would talk about like medical terminology and like things like empathy and how to just like interact with the patient and the provider. Usually, if you were to look this up online, it says it costs almost $500, which is super, super expensive. However, if you're going to apply through something like Scribe America, they often cover that for you as part of like their training costs and fees and stuff. So it should be free. If I can remember correctly, when I was looking at Scribe America and Scribe 101, they let me do it for free. So I don't think it should cost anything if you're working through like a major company. And yeah, basically it's like 10 to 15 hours of this like foundational scribing training. And you should get it some type of certification that would last for about 3 months after you complete the course, which is really nice. So. Okay. Yeah, and then this is just a screenshot. So basically I just like went back into my Scribe 101 like course thing, and I just took a screenshot of some of the modules and lessons that they would make you do. So here they say like a day in the life of a medical scribe and some of the specialties and patient information and how you would contribute to that. Basically just like running you through what a scribe actually does. And if Balwant and Shrujita want to just like chime in on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so like Sejal was talking about, it has all these different sections, and then it has all this terminology that you'll need to know. It has like you'll be able to know what certain symptoms of certain diseases are. It's a really comprehensive course, and I found it really helpful because and interesting because that's like what I'm interested in. And so it's actually like pretty fun and pretty fast. And then through Scribe America, which is where I did my scribe training, you actually get paid for completing it. And so it's part of that time and that training.
Echo everything. Opening, like it was quite a fun step to take. I didn't know if I wanted to scribe, but as I was going through the training, I was like, wow, this is some pretty cool stuff.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so I would say like Scribe America and the big companies, ProScribe, SuperScribe, LLC, and Scribe America, those are like big companies that a lot of people often go through. However, there definitely is an alternate route. And this was actually the route that I took to gain scribing experience this last year. So if you go onto like Indeed or Craigslist, especially Indeed, because that's what I use, you can find a lot of like local clinical opportunities that are posted there. So if you can see on the screen, like right on the home page, they have the what section, and you can just type in like medical scribe or any type of scribe. And then they also have a location of where. So if you're trying to find something in Atlanta near the Emory area, you can put Atlanta, or if you're trying to do scribing things when you go back home, just put your hometown, like whatever. So when I was applying for some of these scribing things, I would do Atlanta as well as like the New York City area, just because like that's where I'm from. So I would just like try to find any type of scribing opportunity either here or back home. And then this is just another screenshot. So earlier today, I like clicked the find jobs button to see like medical scribing jobs in Atlanta. And these are some of the things that immediately pop up. So you'll see some private clinics such as like on the right side, the first one, it says medical scribe in the Family Health Centers of Georgia. So that's probably a privately owned clinic. And basically, I would assume like in a private clinic, they train you based on what they want for their scribes. And I would say it's a different process from a bigger company, just because like family owned clinics, private clinics, they kind of give you more of that hands-on experience just because you're working with them for a longer time, and also it could be a more personal connection. So it's really up to you. Like the big companies, they do a great job. You're still going to get your clinical experience. But a private clinic and a local clinic, that's just something that I did, and I found that was also really helpful. So yeah, whatever works for you. And yeah, like I said, like select an opportunity that fits best with your schedule. So sometimes I think I found that the private clinics, just because you can actually communicate with the provider more specifically, you can tell them like, hey, I'm a student, I can only work X amount of hours per week. Like, can you accommodate me? Sometimes I'm pretty sure with Scribe America, there's like those 12-hour shifts. And I think they do accommodate you, but if you're working in a bigger hospital, sometimes that can be challenging. You guys want to comment on that too? That's just something that I found when applying for scribe jobs.
Yeah, so I had two opportunities. Like they wanted to assign me either to a hospital in Atlanta or a hospital about like 30 minutes away. And I ended up choosing the one about 30 minutes away because I talked to their coordinator and they were like, yeah, you only have to come in on weekends. And the one in Atlanta was like, no, we need like night shift, like Tuesdays. And I was like, I'm gonna choose the weekends because I go to school. And so I would just communicate what you need very clearly because yeah, you get matched with the hospital. It's not just like you are interviewing with one.
Okay, and then just talking about some of our experiences, because I think we each kind of had a very different experience with scribing. So I think it would be nice if, we shared our stories with you guys too. Okay, so I worked at a pediatrics clinic in Tucker, which is like 15 minutes away from the Emory campus, from February to September of 2021. So this was mostly in my spring semester of my sophomore year, and then kind of bled in a little bit into the summer as well. But I started applying for jobs around Thanksgiving break. So it was around this time last year when I started like looking at some of the scribing stuff. And I will say it was a very difficult process just because sometimes companies and clinics, they don't often trust undergrads to actually like be competent, if that's the right word. Like they don't think that we often have the experience and the skills to come in and like step into a medical facility. So it is definitely good to expand your search and just like mass apply to these jobs and update your resume. Make sure you're like putting down some skills like typing skills and communication skills that would stand out to some of these companies. And I think also in the latter part of that application process, when I started putting those skills, I started getting more like interviews and just like emails back. So I think that's definitely something to consider with this process. Yeah, so then I started working at the start of the spring semester last year and would work about 15 to 20 hours per week. Just because we were doing virtual school, I was able to split up my schedule, like half classes, half scribing. So that's also something to consider, just because clinical experience and scribing can be a big chunk of your schedule. So you want to make sure you're balancing classes and like research, extracurriculars, whatever you have appropriately with that. And I will say, I think landing a scribing experience just helped me gain confidence when talking to patients and families, and help me understand how to work well with like a medical team, with providers, medical assistants, nurse practitioners, just anyone who is in that facility. And also became well versed with systems like EHR and EMR, just because if you're going to go into a medical facility in the future, you want to know how to actually use some of those software programs, which is really great. And then towards the end of the summer and like beginning of September, I just kind of shifted back into research, just because I think something with scribing, like once you do it day in and day out, you realize a lot of it becomes the same, but it is good to like have that solid experience for set amount of months. And I think for me, I told myself I wanted to do this for at least like 6 or 7 months. So that's kind of the schedule that I stuck to. And then I realized like I need to go back to school, do other things. So it's really, how your schedule is able to like cope with some of these things. So
Yeah, so I applied through Scribe America. I actually found out, so my friend and I applied together because my friend found it through like some internship program, specifically that the emergency department in the Emory hospitals needed scribes. So we both like emailed the like Emory Scribe email themselves asking if we could like have an interview or something, and then we went through the application process. So that all occurred in June. I will say that, yeah, working in the emergency department is quite demanding. It's quite stressful. And it is through Scribe America. So we are contracted to work like a set amount of hours for like a set amount of time. And I think like for the most part, it's 2 to 3 8-hour shifts a week. And then like it requires working some holidays as well. So on average, this is also just me being me. I just want money. So I chose to work 3 shifts like a week, which does total amount to like 24 hours. I think like a really important thing that is important to mention in my experience so far is that like I've really did the switch just to doing scribing. Like other than PHA, scribing is like the main thing I'm doing during my semesters. I think it's like kind of like the opposite of Sejal. Like I transitioned out of research from the summer and then to scribing during the semester. So I think I'll do that again when the summer comes around. But yeah, honestly though, it has been a really great experience because I've always like dabbled with the idea of just being pre-med, and I've taken all the classes, but I didn't think I really had that why. And I think my why is a lot clearer now. And I can differentiate between being a physician, the different types of physicians that exist, being a PA or NP or nurses, and then also just like seeing the interactions between patients and the physicians, the entire medical team, along with like insurance and billing companies and residents and current medical students. It was like a really great opportunity. I think nearly all of my shifts so far, I've had a chance to just like have a one-on-one with everyone on the team and be like, so why did you do this? They're like, why are you where you are today? And it's been great, especially since I come from a family that has no history of like being in healthcare. So I was practically going into like being pre-med totally blind. And now I have like a lot more connections, and I'm like really happy about my experience so far. And I've also been getting a lot of knowledge about medicine and science in general, which has been awesome.
So my experience was a little bit different in terms of the application process compared to Sejal and Balwant, because I like at the end of first year, or like honestly, in February of first year, I was like, I have no clinical experience. I've been doing nothing. And so I Googled clinical experience opportunities and I just like stumbled upon Scribe America. And I think I applied in February and they didn't get back to me. And like, I don't know that I cared that much, but they didn't get back to me. So I was like, oh, like I probably didn't get it. And then at the end of March, I got a call from a woman that was like, can you make it to this interview date? And I was like, sure, like, okay. And so then I went, I didn't actually start until May. Like it was a very extended, like at least my coordinator was not the most organized. I think she was like new at her job. So like it was like just a very weird process where I started my application process in February and I didn't start the job until May. And then once I got in, it was so awesome. Like I learned so much. So like part of the interview process is you have an oral interview where they'll like ask you some medical terminology and also just get a feel for like, are you qualified? Are you competent? And then there's a written exam. And so studying for that, I was like, wow, like I'm finally learning stuff that I think will be applicable to my real life job that I want one day. And that's just not something I'd experienced in the classroom, at least in college thus far. And so that was really great. What I will say is Scribe America does require a 1-year contract. So like Bill once said, when you go into scribing, it does take up a huge portion of your time. I got really lucky that my coordinator was really accommodating. And like in the summer, I worked like 3-4 shifts because it was really all I was doing. And then once the school year started, I really mainly worked on the weekends. And then like a few months into the school year, my hospital stopped using the scribe system. So they were like, we can transfer you to a different hospital. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, that's okay. I'll just like dip. But I got very lucky. Like usually it is a year-long contract. So I would really think about that commitment. Like, I think it's such an excellent experience because you learn so much medical terminology and you learn how to document like patient exams and like what the patient is telling you. And you learn how to identify what's important and what blood thinners are. And like, it's just such a valuable experience. But in order to get what you need out of that experience, you have to carve out time for you. Like I could have never done this year because I have so much other stuff going on. It was really only something I could have done after my first year. But I'm really glad I did it. And yeah, so we have some time for questions if anyone has any.
Hi, yeah, I have a question. Sorry, it's kind of loud. Let me know if you can hear me.
Totally good, Sammy. What's up?
So you said that it's like a year-long contract. So did you stay in Atlanta over the summer and do scribing that way?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that the hospital I was 30 minutes away from Atlanta was like right next to my home. Like that's why they offered me those 2 spots, is because one was close to my like home address and one was close to my school. And so like since I was at home for the summer, it didn't require anything different from me. When I was at school though, I had to make sure that I had a car on campus because I had to drive back. Because I would do the night shift typically on like Saturday or Sunday.
All right, so if I live in like Texas, so would you like recommend finding a job in Atlanta then? And then like, because if it's a year-long contract, I wouldn't be able to like, obviously apply or
So I would reach out to them because my year, what happened is one person, so it was like me and another person who started at this hospital at the same time. And when they shut down, he just transferred hospitals. Like I think his like girlfriend is moving. And so he was like, oh, like this is perfect. Like I'm going to move. And so I think they let you transfer hospitals, but I would check with your coordinator because they'll just have more specific information than I do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
I can add a little bit to that. So for me, I am contracted for 1 year. So that's why I started in August, so that I know I could like say like, oh, like 2 semesters, that's 1 year. Because I do live in Massachusetts and I do want to go home in the summer. And I also cannot afford to live here by myself. So I was gonna like probably just, I don't know, leave and then just come back my senior year when I'm back in Atlanta. But I was giving like a large enough like time frame for me to scribe so that I can have this. But again, you really have to check with your coordinator. I still don't know my plans. Like I might stay in Atlanta actually. I have no idea.
Any other questions? Okay, if any questions come up, you guys can always email us. Our emails are just like our names at emory.edu, or feel free to look us up on the PHA blog site. We all have office we all have office hours every week, so you can always stop by there. We'll stick around for the next 2-3 minutes if anyone has some questions that they're too shy to ask in the group format. But thank you all so much for coming, and I hope that you guys become scribes in the future. And if you do, let us know. Good luck.
Thanks, y'all. I'm going to answer a question we got in the chat.
Do we have a question in the chat?
Yeah. So someone said, out of curiosity, when do most students begin scribing? Additionally, would I be able to do scribing in just the summer break, or would I have to carry it into the school year? So I think, like we said, it really depends on your coordinator. I was planning on scribing in Massachusetts when I lived there, but the coordinator for the hospital that I lived right next to like required a year-long commitment. So I was like, you know what? No, I'll just do it in Atlanta. So it honestly really depends. I do think that the vast majority of it is like typically a year, but and that's for like big corporations. So
Yeah, I was gonna highlight that point. If it's like through an organization like Scribe America, and there's a few others that I don't know remember the name off right off the top of my head, but they were a year-long contract. I've had friends who like have a private practice that they know a physician at, and that's much less stringent. That being said, you would have to pay for the course, Scribe 101, but you're not required to do a year-long contract.
Yeah, just like kind of adding on to that. I guess because my experience is more of like the private clinic format. For them, I think they were asking for like 6 months, 6-7 months. And I was able to say like, yeah, I can do that. But just because I was able to form like close relationships with some of the just like providers and like people who used to manage the office, it was easier to kind of like get out of it when I had to. But kind of like what you guys were saying, I'm pretty sure most, even like big companies, they know we're students, and like any undergrads who are students, their schedules are so volatile at this point. So it makes sense. Like they're not going to be like 1 year, like you have to stay here, you know, like life happens. And I think they would understand if you had to dip. So.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other part of the question was like, when do you typically do scribing? Personally, I never even thought about scribing until like earlier this year, like probably in January when I found out about it. But if I had done it like freshman year, I don't know what would have happened. Like I think my grades would have been so poor. My time management was not the best my freshman and sophomore year. My time management is a lot better now. So I feel like as you mature and you get to know yourself and how you work, then you'll like know the answer to that. I think it can be anytime. There are a lot of students who also do it like in their gap years before medical school, or gap years while they're applying. So it's definitely a variety. It just like depends on you. The other thing is like my schedule is really nice because I don't have classes on Mondays, I don't have classes on Fridays, and then I end class right before a shift starts. So then I just had a lot of availability.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of going off of that, that's exactly how I like structured my schedule last year too. I was able to take like a whole Monday off and then just work from like 8 to 8. And then Tuesdays, I would just dump all my classes in the morning and then have all of the afternoon to just like go to work. So, but I think honestly, like I've been getting questions if students should do it right now in the semester. And it really depends like on your schedule and how much you can trust yourself, but like burnout is real, especially if you live on campus. And if you're an underclassman, like some of the foundational courses that you have to take right now, like Orgo and stuff, it takes a lot of like work and effort, and maybe that clinical experience can be shifted off. Like it really depends on like how much you trust yourself academically too. So and also I think Samantha has a question if you want to ask.
Yeah, so sorry, I just filled out like the Scribe America like form, and there was like a drop down for like either working full time or part time. And I know Sharita, you said you work like 2 to 3 shifts. So is that a part time? You did part time job?
So mine counted as full time because my hospital only had like 2 physicians who wanted scribes, and so I think like the Atlanta one that they offered me was like they had 4 to 5 scribes every night. Mine had like 2 or 3 a week, like depending on the doctor. And so I was technically full-time, even though I did not work the full-time hours. And so yeah, it was just a very like it is so dependent on like who you're working with, like what hospital you choose to work at, your coordinator. Like I think my experience was a lot more unstructured than I think other people's might have been, which I really liked. But I worked with someone who was scribing like for their gap year, and they wanted a lot more structure because that was like all they were doing. And I was like, this is great. Like I have so much time. So
Okay,
I think
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. And then, so for the training, do you start only after you've been like placed in like a hospital, or like, because when I fill out the form, I just like submitted it and then it was like done. But like, so is there like a place that I go for like the training, or?
So when you get the interview, they're going to send you a packet of materials. And in that there'll be like vocab terms and like stuff you'll have to know. Cause in my interview, they were like, what does cardiomyopathy mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like they'll ask a vocab term from that like material. And then once you're hired, you'll go through the formal training process, which is like Scribe 101. It's not a Canvas page, but it's like a Canvas course. And you like take quizzes and stuff. And once you're done with that, you'll take a written exam. And once you pass that, you'll be trained for like the clinical experience.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. And then so you said like sorry, I think Angel, is that sorry, I don't I think you talked about you applied for like around like 100 like scribing jobs. So how long did it take for you to like get back? Sorry, I don't remember if you said like how long did it take for them to get back to you about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think my experience was kind of a little crazier than usual just because it was during COVID. Like this was peak COVID from November to February or so, like around last year's winter break. And like they did not trust like people coming in, which is why I think it also was like, that many companies and stuff. I would say, I think in the beginning, around December, I was just like not really getting calls back, or like they would ghost me a lot. Like it was just very frustrating. It would just be like day in, day out applying and like pure ghosting. But I think the later part of winter break, like January, I started getting interviews for companies like Scribe America and ProScribe and stuff. But ultimately I chose to do private clinic just because it like fit what I wanted to do more too. Like the clinic that I worked with is a pediatrics clinic, and that's exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life, rather than something like in a bigger hospital. So yeah, I mean, it did take that amount of time, I think, because I was also a little specific, but also because of COVID. So I think it's going to lighten up if you apply right now. Like you shouldn't be applying to like 100 jobs like I did, in my opinion. So
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Samantha, before you leave, I was going to say, like, I think in terms of Emory's policy, or like like this Emory working with Scribe America in the emergency department, part-time was 2 to 3 shifts a week, and then full-time was more than like at least 3 shifts a week.
Okay, got it. And then if I apply through like Scribe America, do I need to also apply through like Indeed and stuff, or does Scribe America kind of just like do it for you? Because the way that I saw when I just submitted my application was it asked for like I guess like give me like a list of like cities I could apply to since I live in Dallas, and it was just like like a bunch of cities with like the flash. So I guess like does that mean that there are like will it find jobs that are available that are posted in those different cities, or should I apply to like Indeed as well, or like some other like job posting website?
okay, I think with that, so when I first started applying to jobs, I first went through Scribe 101 and Scribe America. And I think kind of like what Srijita said, I didn't get a response for so long. Like I was just sitting there not getting a response. And this was also during a time when Scribe America through the Emory hospitals was like not a thing because of COVID. Like they just also shut down. So that's why I went to Indeed, and then I started like looking up some of the private clinics and stuff. I think it's not a bad idea, especially if you want to like expedite your process and like expanding your options, expanding your like broadening your horizons of like things you want to do. But do you think like how was Scribe America for you this semester? Were they more responsive?
So no, I kind of had a very similar experience. Like I started in June. I like emailed them, didn't get a response back for 2 weeks, emailed them again. They finally responded, said I needed to apply through the online application. I applied, waited another 2 weeks. I emailed them again being like, hey, what's up? Then they finally responded being like, all right, you have an interview. And then I was like, all right, when's the interview? And then I waited another 2 weeks and they're like, can you do this week? And I was like, yeah, that works. And then they're like, okay, cool. Then like they gave me a packet to like memorize, like, and I had an oral exam and I had a written exam. They're like, can you do that? And I was like, all right. And then another 2 weeks passed and they're like, you passed. And I was like, cool, when do I start? So it was like from June all the way up until September. And then I didn't even start floor training until like later in September. That part was not on there. That part was not their fault. It was like Emory's. Like it was like you have to get hired, like, and you have to go through like HR, and like I think with any job going through HR is just ridiculous. So that's what like delayed me a lot.
Yeah, that
Okay,
honestly,
so
sorry. I was gonna say
sorry.
that sounds about right. And I have zero patience. Like I can't believe Balwant that you did all of that. I had zero patience. So I think when I got this, like that second email, the second step that Balwant said, I was just like, screw this. Like I need to do something else. And I think that's why looking to Indeed and then cold calling, like sometimes I'd look at the jobs and then submit my resume, they wouldn't respond, and then I just like cold call the clinics and the front desk would be like, hey, what's up, like are you a patient? And I'd be like, no, I want a job, like I saw you posted stuff. So you just really have to like low-key be aggressive if you want a scribing job. Like they don't trust undergrads that much, especially if you're still in school. So yeah, I think you do just need to be out there a little bit with this process.
Okay,
Um,
so
sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say like, so if I want to find a scribing job during the summer, I should start applying now.
Maybe not
Essentially-
now. I would probably start applying in January.
Okay.
I think now might be a little early and they might want you to start like March, but it takes about like, I think like they said, it'll take them about a month to get back to you. And then you can do like the oral exam and like they'll do that virtually if you need to. And so that'll be like another month. And so then you'll probably start 2 weeks later. So like 2.5 months. That's what it was for me. I started in February and ended up starting in June.
Okay, perfect. Because I don't know, the way that the Scribe America thing said was like when are you available to like start working, like your first day? And I just put like June of like the summer. So like, do they actually like look at that, or is it just like?
They do look at that. I don't know if they mean like that's when you want to interview or if that's when you want to like start, because those two are very different dates, because you have a lot of training and prep to go through before your actual first day, especially your first solo day, because the job is like there's just a lot of specific stuff you have to know, and you won't know without like the shadowing experience. Ooh.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Scribe America, like what are the other scribing companies can offer you the, I guess, like course?
I think every other scribing company does. There's ProScribe. Here, Here, I can just Google it right now because I don't fully know the answer, but I think you can just look up like scribe organizations in America.
I will say, I went through Scribe America because I knew specifically the Clifton Hospital, which is at Woodruff Circle, used Scribe America. So like I only applied through there. Like I didn't even look through like other locations. I really just wanted, I really needed clinical experience and I wanted something like a place to work that I could walk to. And Clifton was right there and that worked with my schedule. So it was really like a triple win for me. So I don't know the other like
I found Scribe, ProScribe, Scribe Connect, and Scribe America. I'm sure there are more, but I think you can like just Google.
And then I guess just to clarify, so like Scribe America will give you the course for free, but it's the only one that'll give you the course for free, but for that you would have to do like a 1-year
I
contract.
think that all of the big organizations will give you the course for free. I think all of the big organizations require a year-long contract.
Okay.
Whereas like private clinics, or if you have like a relationship with the physician that wants to scribe, like that's different, and they might not want a 1-year contract.
Okay. So private ones can give you the course and you'd still have to pay for that, but then you wouldn't have to do 1 year compared to like the bigger companies, which would give you
Yes.
for free. Okay, sure, that makes sense.
I
Okay.
will say,
Oh wait, go ahead.
what's it called? The process is very, very long, but you can back out. Like it's not like they're not gonna
It's like a
hold it over
job.
your head.
You can
Like,
quit whenever you want. It is a job,
yeah. Like
but
my
it also
friend-
like they need you. So I wouldn't go into it thinking that you're gonna quit.
Yes, yes. It's a long process, but it's a long process for a reason. Like
Mhm.
they want you to stay. The
Mhm.
other thing was my friend, she like there were two of us that were like three of us that were all doing it together. My friend did the entire course, and she was like, you know what? I don't want to do it. And then she like finished, she got her certificate, but she just like backed out at the end. And then the other thing was I had another friend who did scribing at a private clinic. They actually like they had her go through Scribe 101, but they didn't like make her pay for it. Like I think they bought it for her. So I don't know, Sejal, you had the same experience.
Yeah, just like talking about Scribe 101 with that. The only way I got access to it was because I was like starting off with Scribe America, and then I was able to like do the course, and I think I got like that whole interview request, that stuff. But I did interview with Scribe America, and I think that's why like they did give me Scribe 101 access, but it was also kind of like not the same interview process as you guys. Like I didn't have the written exam or anything like that during COVID, which is really interesting. So with the clinic that I eventually worked with, they fully like they did not care about Scribe 101, and like they genuinely did not care. They're just like, we're starting you from scratch. If you saw in the presentation that screenshot of eClinical Works, like that's how they trained me. So they basically, the provider sat down with me for like 2 or 3 hours. We went through the entire thing. And then at the end of the day, that first day, he was like, okay, go into the room and start. And it was just like, that was intimidating. But yeah, overall, just like Scribe 101, I think it would be needed for a bigger company, but often private clinics are not going to force you to pay for that. And they don't want to pay for that too. So like they'll probably have their own protocols on like what you would have to do to be a scribe for them. That's just what I think.
And then I guess like last question here, but just to clarify the overall process. So if I were to like make like an online app on Scribe America and then get an interview, and then if they're satisfied with it, then they'll give you the materials like the online course and everything. And then do they connect you to hospitals in the area you select, or is that like what you have to go and do on your own, I guess?
I think I had like slightly different than you, Sujita, because I was like, as soon as I submitted my application, I got Scribe 101. And then I had to complete that in order to get an interview, which is interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they've changed it for me. It was basically I submitted the application. did an interview, but I had 2 interviews. I had like an oral interview. And then after that, I had the Scribe 101 thing. And then I had a written exam or like a written interview. Once I passed that, they were, in terms of the connecting to the hospital, it was like Scribe America has contracts with specific hospitals, because the way that we get paid is it's not Scribe America paying us, but we get a portion of the physician who we're scribing for, of their income. So that's why it's like very much up to their decision. Like a lot of them might not want to have a scribe because that's income they're giving up. A lot of them don't want to do that extra like hours of paperwork. And so they're willing to set aside a portion of their income. And so through those contracts, they'll assign you or give you the option for specific hospitals. You don't have to find a hospital. You can put a preference, like Beaumont put a preference for Emory's Clifton Road. I just put locations, and they were like, these are the 2 options we have. Like, which one do you want? And so you don't have to look for an opportunity yourself if you go through one of these larger facilities.
But then in terms of the order of like the submitting the app, doing the course and the interview, it kind of varies, I guess.
I think it can vary. I think what's consistent is that you will have an interview and you will have to memorize materials and you will have to do a course if you go through one of these larger organizations. It just apparently might be in different orders depending on your coordinator.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it a lot.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. Sammy, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, sorry. So in terms of like the typing, so I was looking at some of the job postings, and you have to have like a minimum typing speed of some sort. Is that typing training part of like the scribe training, or do you have to do that on your own?
I didn't get trained to type, but also my facility used paper. Like they had these like rollaway things, but essentially it would do, I know it sounds crazy, but like we would go in, like we were faster. We would go in, we would have like shorthand. And then after we saw a patient, we would sit down at the computer and do it. But like, we didn't take the computer into the patient rooms because a lot of them were like huge. And like the physician I worked with didn't like the clacking of the typing. So like, I like wrote. So I don't know if that's, I'm looking at Balwan's face and now I'm wondering if like my experience is completely incorrect, but I was in I was in like a Wellstar and Alpharetta, like they're pretty chill.
No, I have to laugh. Like, yeah, we bring like the laptop into the room and like we're typing it out while the physician is talking to the patient, or like sometimes the physician will dictate things to us and we just like type. Like, but no, I was just like shocked because like handwriting, like my handwriting is so slow compared to my typing speed. So like, I don't know how did you do that? Like
We'd have like shorthand, like they'd be like, like no distension. And I'd be like, no dis. Like it would basically be like you're just writing to yourself and then you scribe it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, the answer, like the minimum typing speed, I think in general they want at least 60 words per minute. But I do know like obviously they want, like every hospital that has scribes and clinic that has scribes like needs scribes, but they do want like a bare minimum. Like if yeah, the minimum is 60 per minute, but they would prefer a lot more if you had a faster typing speed.
And Sammy, there's like online programs you can use to get better. Like look up like race car track, like type racer. I used to use that like when I was bored in class. And now I can type like 80, 90 words a minute. There's ways that you can, even if they don't provide that training, there's ways for you to get better if that's something you're worried about. I don't think they ever asked me about typing, but maybe that's just because it wasn't relevant to me specifically. Any other questions? All right. Thank you guys for coming. If you have any other questions, our emails are in the chat, so you can always reach out to us or come to our office hours, which are on the PHA blog. And yeah, we hope to see more at these prepare meetings or events.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.